Hello, welcome back. Here we are going to be on lesson 6, I believe it's lesson 6. I kind of didn't do this for a couple of weeks. I was kind of not in the best place to do this. But today I thought we could maybe address the issues of who we are. What part of us do we show to the real world? Do we show us the real us, or do we show us the part of us that we want to be seen as and not be revealing who we really are? So I'm going to title this Knock Knock, Who's There? And as we start this study, I know for myself in my life, I've always said I wore masks because I was going through so many different things in life. Life throws at you. And I had to function. I had a daughter, like 3-year-old daughter. I was going through yet again another divorce, and I had to get a job, and I had to get out in the real world. And the real world that we live in doesn't want to be around someone that's not doing too well. So you have to put on a mask or a facade that you're doing fine. When someone says, "How are you doing?" If you really sat down to tell them how you were doing, they'd run. They don't really want to hear it. So we all learn how to be who we're really not, but who we have to be, because life sends us in that kind of a road. So we learn how to guard our demeanor. Everything about us we guard. We don't want anybody to really know us. So we make up who we want to be. And it's very difficult as we get older trying to be something that we're really not. And I'm not saying we go around talking about our bad things. I'm not saying that at all. But we have to be honest with ourselves first, because no matter what we've gone through, there's other people that have gone through things also. And you need to find a happy place in your life where you can be you. Maybe just not divulge all the things that you've went through, and not be angry, and try not to portray or project what other people are going to do to you just because of what has happened to you. I guess that's the word there, project. And it's a difficult path to be on, and it's very hard to do. But in the Bible, we read many, many stories about how God took people that had, past in their lives that they weren't probably the happiest about or wanted people to know about. But God has a way of using our bad experiences or our pain. He never wastes our pain. God never wastes our pain, if you know him or not. If you come to him and you really want to get well and help other people with your testimony, because that's what it is, your life struggles is exactly what the Lord's going to use to be your testimony, how you got through it. The Bible's full of people that have went through things in their life. And the first thing we need to come to terms with is that we have to take accountability for the things that we need to take accountability for and move forward. We can't keep playing the blame game. We can't keep blaming maybe our mom and dad, what they did to us 25 years ago. Yes, I'm not saying that what they did was right or was even good. But the point is, as we grow up, we have to learn to let go of our past. Like we had that one verse in, I believe it's in Ephesians, that we forget our past and we reach forward to what's in the future. Because our past is going to paralyze us, and we'll never get to a good future if we keep dredging up everything that's happened to us and having anger and hatred towards the people that have hurt us. So we have to be accountable for our response to that and the way that we're living with those pains and hurts every day by moving forward and trying to be released from those painful memories. And in the Bible, there's a lot of examples of people that God changed their names. He didn't change their overall innate personality or who they were, but he changed their character. And that is something that I think we should talk about, because our character is who we are. And we can alter it to a degree, because we don't want people, we want to always look like we're the okay person, when in fact maybe sometimes we're not. And maybe we have done things in our past that hurt people and that we're ashamed of. But you can't live with that shame. That's where Satan keeps you in bondage. Shame is Satan's greatest tool towards us, because we can forgive other people, but sometimes we can't forgive ourselves. And that is not what God wants. God says he forgives us and he forgets it as far as the east is from the west. So that means he forgets about it. We're the ones that keep reminding ourselves of what we've done or what has been done to us. But if we ask for forgiveness, God forgives us. We've got to be able to forgive ourselves and move on from that and learn what we learned from it, not to do it again, because we're not happy or proud of what we have done. So that's growth in and of itself, and that's something that should be celebrated. And in the Bible, one of the people that comes to my mind that I'd like to talk about is Jacob. Jacob, his name means deceiver. And even while he was in his mother's womb, he was a twin to his brother Esau. And when he was being born, he was hanging on the heels of his brother because he wanted to be born first. So his name is deceiver, because back in biblical days, names meant something. Today, they don't really mean that much. It might be your dad's name or somebody, but they don't really have a meaning like they did in the biblical days. And Jacob, as he grew up, he wanted to be Esau because Esau was firstborn. And the firstborn in his culture had, when their parents died, they had the birthright, so they got more of like an inheritance. And his dad liked him more because he was a hunter. Rachel liked Jacob more because he was more of she cared for him more than she did Esau. And so there's always a battle between Esau and Jacob. Well, one day Esau was out hunting, and when he came back, he was hungry. Well, Jacob was in the kitchen cooking, and Esau was so hungry that he said, "Let me have a bowl of that soup." Pardon me. And Jacob goes, "I'll give you a bowl of soup for your birthright," which meant that he was going to sell his birthright so he would get the bigger portion when his parents died. And he did it. And I mean, that is amazing to me. Can you imagine selling half or more than half of the fortune that you were going to be getting for a bowl of soup? A bowl of soup, to me, represents self-gratification. I'm hungry, I want it now, and I don't care what it costs me. And there's grave consequences for wanting to have self-satisfaction immediately. And that is, to me, one of the stories in the Bible. We have to learn to have self-control and not rush after something we want so bad that we lose sight as to what it's going to mean down the road as we go. So there was number one thing that Jacob did. But after he did it, he knew it was wrong. And then later on in the story, we read about Rachel was telling him, your dad's going to be dying, so I want you to act like you're Esau so that you will get the greater blessing, because he has to bless them, even though he sold his birthright. Now he had to act like he was Esau when his dad was dying, which is Isaac was his dad. And so she did something because he was hairy on his arms now. And Esau was out in the field to go hunting because his dad wanted his last meal to be something that he caught, because he loved eating wild food, the wild animal food that he would catch, and he was a hunter. And that's what he wanted. So Jacob turns around, acts like he's Esau, and his dad even questioned it, but he couldn't see that well, and he was old, so he gave him the blessing. And then after he did that, he was scared of Esau. And he was not a hunter, so he was really afraid. So he ran to another city, and he hid out for many, many, many years because he knew what he did to his brother. And that guilt and just everything about it, that where he moved to, the man that he moved to was Rachel's brother, and he wanted to marry Rebecca. I'm sorry, her name was Rebecca. He wanted to marry Rachel. So when he left his family, he moved into another family called Laban, was his uncle. And he said, "I love Rachel and I want to marry her." He goes, "Okay, well, you can marry her if you work for me for 7 years." So now he worked for 7 years, but he married her sister because she was older than Rachel. So the uncle deceived Jacob. So he got paid back. But through it all, the story that I want to get to, it's a whole story. You should read it. It's a very good story to read. It's in Genesis 32, 22 to 31 is part of that story, and it's very good. So anyway, when he went to get Rachel, he had to work another 7 years. So 14 years he worked to marry Rachel, and she was beautiful. So anyway, he got that, and over the years, he started wondering about his brother. So he sent word to his brother Esau that he wanted to meet with him. Now Esau had a lot of money too, and so did Jacob. So Jacob was going to come and bring gifts to his brother to make amends with his brother because he missed him, and he knew he was trying to make right what he had done when he was younger. And when he did so, Esau came up to meet him, and he was afraid still. So he sent his family on the other side of the river, and he went to see, because he was scared he might try to kill him or something. But he ran with him and wrapped his arms around him and said, "Oh, I'm so glad to see you." He had forgiven him. But all those years, Jacob had to live with the thoughts of what he did, and he wasn't happy with himself at all. But he got paid back. And that's something that we need to realize in our life, that these things that we play in our mind over and over again, life goes on and things change and people change. But we have to get to the point in our life that we're willing to confront what it is that we're running from. And in doing so, we become who we really are, because we're tired of wearing a mask, or we're tired of having to live with the circumstances of what we've done in our life. And we want to just come clean, and we want to have a new beginning. And in a lot of cases, you do get to have that new beginning, but the collateral damage of what you've done in the past is over. It's done. But God has a way of giving you a new life and bringing new people into your life so that you can move on. And the pain of what you've lost in the past doesn't hurt as much as it does before you become aware of what you've done and you're trying to make it right. God, you're freeing yourself up so that God can come in and restore to you the things that you've lost. Yeah, maybe you lost family, but God can bring another. It may not be, quote, blood family, but he can bring family back to you, and you can live your life and be happy again and not be dwelling on the bad things that happened in your life. Will you ever forget your real family? No. But the pain of it, and you can move on and have a decent life. And that's what God wants. God doesn't want us to be two different people or three different people in our emotions. It's tiring. We get tired when you're trying to pretend you're one way and you have all this pain and hurt inside, and you don't really want anybody to really know who you are. You just get exhausted. And that's why a lot of people run to a drug or to alcohol or get in debt shopping or whatever the case might be that you go to satisfy that deep need that's within you, where God is the only one that can actually heal the pain that you've been in. And you need to come to the fact to know that, you know what, I don't have to live like this. There's a saying that people, when I used to work in the House of Hope, there, a lot of ex-drug addicts or alcoholics or whatever the vice might be, is you have to be tired of being sick and tired. And until you get to that point, you will always revert back to what was familiar or comfortable to you, like that rut we were talking about, where if you give it to God, literally give it to him, and every time it starts to come up to your thoughts again, you stop and say, "No, Satan, you're a liar. That's who I used to be. It's not who I am. I used to be a deceiver. I used to be a liar. I used to be this, or that, but that's not who I am anymore. I'm a new person. I've given my life over to the Lord. I'm not living that lifestyle anymore, and I've learned self-control, and I've learned that I don't have to have everything I want now." That self-gratification. Anytime you want something now and you're grabbing at it, not waiting for the right time to come, or if you're even really ready to get it. A lot of times there's many things we want in life, but we're just not ready for them yet. Just like everybody says, "Oh, I'd love to win the lottery and make millions of dollars." Well, that's fine and dandy. But what would you do, truthfully, if somebody put down in your hands right now $5 million? Would you know how to handle that? You'd squander it. A lot of times it's proven. People that want, they wish they didn't have it because it ruined them, because they didn't know how to handle all that money. When you get blessed with something, or you're given an abundance of something, you have to learn you have to know how to manage it, how to maintain it, and how to not let it control you, but you control it. Given the right situations, if you have all of the available information you need and you know how to organize things, you could be sitting great for the rest of your life, plus helping hundreds of other people. But if you're greedy and you don't know how to handle money, if you can't handle $1,000, how in the world do you think you're going to handle $5 million? You're not, because you're not capable of knowing how to do it, because you've never learned how to do it. That's why in the next story that we're talking about, like Moses is another person that was raised. He was born, and he was to be the man that was going to free God's people. And he was thrown when he was a little baby, 3 months old or so. His mom put him down the Nile River in a basket because the king was out to kill every baby that was born that was 2 years and under, because they knew that there was a person that was going to come and save the Jews. So she was fearful, so she put her baby. Well, Pharaoh's daughter was taking a bath in the Nile River that day, and she saw the baby in the basket, which he could have been eaten by alligators and everything else at the time, but he was special and God protected him. And the Pharaoh's daughter picked him out of the water. She knew he was an Egyptian or an Israelite. She knew he was a Jew because of the blanket that he was wrapped in, but she took him out of the water and raised him as her own son. So here's Moses, a young baby. He's a Jew living in the palace with the Pharaoh of Egypt, like it's like being in the presidency of the United States. And he was raised and educated as an Egyptian, yet he was a Jew. But he knew himself, because of the blanket he had, he was never hidden that he was a Jew, but he was raised in the temple. And as he got older, he was out and saw an Egyptian mistreating the Israelite, the Jew, because they were slaves, and they built bricks to build the city and everything. And he saw them being unjust to him, and he killed one. I don't think Moses intended to kill him, but it's what happened, and he buried him. And when he buried him, other Egyptians saw what Moses had done. And a couple days later, or whatever, I don't know how long it was, but he was out again, and he saw the injustice. And when they saw him, the Egyptian said, "What are you going to do? Kill us now like you did the other Egyptian?" Well, he knew that he was exposed. He knew that he got caught killing somebody. So he knew he would be killed. So he took off running. Here is Moses. He was next in line to be the Pharaoh. You know, he had everything going for him. But because he did something and he killed a man, and he did, and he ran, and he lived in the wilderness, and he was 40 years old at that time. He ran into the wilderness, and he lived 40 years in the wilderness with his wife's family, and he tended sheep. I mean, here's a man that God brought into this world to bring out the people of Egypt, to save his people, and now he ran because he was in such fear, and Pharaoh was out to get him, because you don't kill an Egyptian. So Moses had to suffer the consequences of what he did, and he had to become another person. But God used Moses' time in being raised and being an Egyptian to know their culture, to know the way they go to school, everything. He was raised as an Egyptian, so he knew from the bottom up how to be an Egyptian and how they ran Egypt. So 40 years later, we go back, now Moses is 80. So Moses, as he is walking through the wilderness one day, tending the sheep, he noticed a bush at a distance, and it was on fire. And it just caught his eye, and he kind of looked at it, but it wasn't burning up. And after a while, he just kept looking at it, and he was thinking, wonder why it's not burning. Unlike today, if we were trying to walk through something, we'd be scrolling, looking at our phone. We would probably we would step over a stone and fall, because we're not paying attention to anything around us, just looking at our screen. Well, Moses in his day,
he had the whole wilderness sky and everything to look at. So he was looking around and he noticed that, which is a lesson in and of itself that sometimes, well, not sometimes, most of the time, we should be aware of what's around us. And if we would take the time to be aware of what's around us, we'd see beautiful flowers, we would see the sunsets, we would see sunrises, we would see people doing things that are happy, and we would internally and mentally, we would feel so much better if we would just take time to put our phones down and look around, interact with people. I mean, this is a lesson. I know I'm getting off track here, but I really feel led to say this. I mean, we need to settle down and start looking around us. Go down by a creek or the beach and just sit there and listen to the waves. Put your feet in the sand and enjoy life instead of just rushing from here to there and not paying attention to anything. How many things we miss. In this story of Moses, he would have missed his life's job, what God called him to be. Moses was called to bring God's people out of Egypt. Had he been looking at rocks or throwing things, he would have missed the whole, we would not even know who Moses was. But he took the time to not only see something, but he went and walked over to it. And in Exodus 3:10, verses 3 and 4, so when Moses saw that the bush was burning, he looked, and from the midst of that bush, he heard God say, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, here I am. Can you imagine how afraid Moses was standing in the middle of the wilderness, like standing in the Mojave Desert or wherever you are, that's desolate area, and going over to a bush and hearing a voice in the sky or just wherever calling your name? I mean, you would be scared to death, I'm sure. I know I would. I'd probably pass out. You know, who's out here talking to me? But he said, here I am. Because up to this point in time, you don't really hear about God. So you don't even know if Moses knew who God was. God had a plan for his life, but we really don't know if God knew him at this point in time. But he said, here I am, because he heard the voice and he thought, boy, something's talking to me. And then if you read verses 7 and 8 in chapter 3, and the Lord said, I have surely seen the oppression of my people who are in Egypt, and heard their cry because of their taskmakers. For I know their sorrow, so I have come down. So now God's telling Moses, I've come down to talk to you to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up from the land to a land good, and it's just a prosperous land with milk and honey. He was going to take the Jewish people, the Israelites, out of slavery, which they had been in slavery for hundreds of years. Now God's going to take them and bring them into their own land, which we know as today Israel. But at the time, they were just going to be getting out of Egypt into the promised land. Now you got to realize this is Moses, who killed somebody who had ran from Egypt for 40 years. Now this God that I don't even know he really knew was calling him to go back to Pharaoh and say that he's going to take his people out of Egypt. Moses did not want to go, nor would we want to go. He says, who am I? You know, I don't even speak well. What do you mean? I can't go to do that. So he was telling God who he was, and God was trying to say, no, I made you, and this is what I want you to do. And I will give you the ability to do it and the words to do it. So Moses was one person hidden in shame of everything that he had done, totally living a life that was totally unlike how he was raised the first 40 years. Now he was out in the wilderness for 40 years. And at 80 years old, he's going to be on a mission to do something for God. So you might say, oh, I'm too old. I can't do this. My best years are behind me. No, your best years are ahead of you. And if you're still breathing today, God has something for you to do. And that is something that we all need to realize. If you're still alive, there is a reason you're alive, and there's something that God wants you to do. We don't know what that is, but that's what our journey is, to try to find out what it is. And God is more than happy to tell us and to show us. But it takes us diligence in getting his word, studying it, trying to apply what we learn, and trusting that God can change us and that God can heal our heart and that God can bring the right people in our life. It's by faith. We have to have faith and we have to have hope. Satan will rob you of your hope. Well, you've done that before. How many times you've done that? It didn't work out. Are we going to really, who's going to listen to you? Look what you've done. We have all of those bad, negative things coming at one ear, and then we've got the Lord trying to tell us, this is what I want you to do. We press forward to do what God has to bless us, but we're always being pulled back to what we know who we are. And that's what I'm saying. Who's there? Is it you or is it who God says you can be? Because we all have that choice in our life to continue on the path that we've lived up to this point in time in our life, or do we want to change and become the person that we truly would like to be, realizing that I can still be that person I would like to be. I don't have to be this person where I'm at. I don't care if you're a CEO in a company or if you're sitting in a prison cell. God has a purpose for you, and he will use every single thing in your life that has hurt you, that brought you to this point in your life, and bring you to the point like he did with Moses. I'm taking you now, and you're going to go do what I want you to do. And Moses was one of the big, everybody knows who Moses is. I mean, if you don't believe in the Bible, we all know about Moses, the parting of the Red Sea. We know about the 10 plagues. I mean, this was Moses, somebody that was running from the Egyptian, walking in with a stick. He didn't even have weapons. And the stick, he goes, what? How am I? He goes, I can't fight against them. It's me. And God says, what's in your hand? And he had the shepherd's shaft, the stick. He goes, throw it down on the ground. So he threw it down on the ground, and it turned into a snake. He jumped back. Can you imagine having a stick in your hand? It turned into a snake. And then he said, now pick it up. I don't think if I was Moses, I would have picked it up personally, but Moses did pick it up, and it turned back into a stick. God was trying to show Moses the power that he had in that I am going with you, Moses. You're not going alone. You're just going to be my spokesperson. But I will get my people out, but I'm going to use you to do it. And when he did finally get to Egypt, there was 10 times he went to Pharaoh to say, let my people go. And there were plagues. You could read the story. It's an excellent read. I don't have time to go through the whole story. But the end result was Moses did get the Israelites out of Egypt. Was it an easy process? No, it took quite a lot. And it's a great story to read. So he went, and the reason, like us, Moses was full of fear. The whole time he was doing it, he was still Moses. But God was strengthening him. God was building his character. And I'm sure at the end of it all, Moses actually saw the back of God's body when he was in a mountaintop. And he went and he talked to God face to face. God talked to Moses face to face. It wasn't, his face shined when he climbed down the mountain, when he got the 10 Commandments. The story is amazing about Moses. But it's talking about Moses, and yeah, isn't it an example at a high? Are we ever going to bring people out of Egypt? No. But we can take other people out of bondage through fear, drugs, alcohol, if we were there and we got our way out. So yes, we can free people too, just like Moses. Maybe not as dramatically as Moses did it. But the example is in the Bible for us to read, to realize God can do anything. And it doesn't mean because God called you to do something that it's going to be an easy road to go, because it's not. There's not a person in the Bible that I'm aware of all the stories of the 66 books in the Bible, that God used and their life was perfect. They all had issues to go through. And it was a hard road to toil, but they did it. And then we read about these men in the Bible and women, and we think, oh, they were exceptional saints. No, they were just like you and I. The only difference between them and us is that they took a step out in faith and believed God and did it. And that's what God's looking for. There's a verse in the Bible, I don't have it right here, but I will put it on the notes at the end. But there's a thing in the Bible that says before you're going to be a follower of Jesus, count the cost. And he breaks it down to like a contractor. If you're going to build a house, you have to know You have to have the plans first, but then you have to have the money. You can say, well, I'm going to build a $400,000 house, but if you only have $100,000, can you build a $400,000 house? No. So before you go and you want to become something or be something, consider the cost. What is it going to cost me to get from here to here? It may not be monetarily cost, but it's a cost of what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice to make yourself be the person that you truly want to be inside of yourself? Because there's a real you in there. As much as you've been hurt or things have happened to you and you're so dead inside, and I know I live with that. I live with that till this day, just like I said in the onset of this. I haven't done anything these last couple of weeks because I just really wasn't mentally there to do this. We all go through things. It doesn't matter who we are. And yeah, we can be going great, and then all of a sudden we hit a roadblock. And you got to step back a little bit and kind of like figure out, well, what put me there? Like those notes, I say that we write down our notes. What has happened that has set me back that far? You know, a lot for me, it's weather. If it's real dark and gloomy and rainy and the sun's not out and I get locked in my house, I have claustrophobia and I just get real, I just not me. And it affects me mentally a lot. And could God take that away? Yeah, he could. But has he? Not really. But it's something I have to work on because God's not going to be the instant healer. Say, okay, Terry, you're upset, so I'm going to take it away from you. No, he wants us to learn how to work through it. Work through it so that you don't get set back. What used to take me maybe 2 months to get over, now maybe takes me 2 weeks. So I've grown immensely. Am I there yet? No. But at least I didn't let this go on for 3 months. And that's where we have to look and celebrate our small steps. Because if you celebrate the small steps, it's going to be a lot easier for you to attain what you're kind of looking for. And we all have that. And we have to go to God sometimes in prayer because we're so dead inside and hopeless. And we're in a dark spot. I call it the abyss. And the voices in our mind are telling us that we're this or you're that, or, who's going to believe you and who cares? And, all of those things that we have to erase those thoughts out of our mind. And they're hard to erase. It's like when we did the couple of studies before, the rut in your mind. We've got to change those thinking patterns into something that's positive. And if you stick with it, you can do it. Look at Moses. 40 years he was in the wilderness. 40 years he was one of the top ranking people in Egypt. Then he got down to being in the wilderness, tending sheep, picking up dung and doing, just a shepherd. No value, no real having to have any knowledge. That's what he did for 40 years. So the first 40 years of life, kind of slated out, became a nobody. And then all of a sudden at 80, he started climbing the wheel of success because he had learned so much. He became very humble. He learned to listen to that he had so much more in him that he didn't even know he had in him. And God used him greatly. And that's what he can do with you in your life. But you have to believe that too. You can read it, but you have to truly believe inside, I do have that in me. And I can climb out of this hole that I'm in. And I can be the person that God wants me to be. And I want to be happy, and I deserve to be happy. I don't have to keep living from my past. We might be 50, 40, 60, but whatever's left in your life, you can enjoy it and not be in bondage to something and trying to cover up who you really are. Be who God made you to be. Are there mistakes in your life? Yeah. There's not a soul on this earth that has not made mistakes. They may look like they have it all together, but trust me, nobody has it all together. And if they did, we wouldn't be hearing about people that were rich and famous committing suicide. If money was the answer in success, then there would be no suicides in that realm of life. And there are. There's many, many people that get everything that the world deems successful or having it together, which really they're probably deeper in depression and sadness than you are, that are struggling because you have a family, you have everything that they want, but you don't have what they want. So it's like a change, like, well, I want what they have and they want what I have, they have tons of money, so you would think it would be easier for them. But no, because when you have tons of money, you don't know what people really like. Do they like you, or do they like your money and what you do for them? There's exchanges everywhere, and that's what people have to start to realize. And it doesn't matter what your zip code is. You can be on Nob Hill in San Francisco or New York City, or you can be in whatever city that isn't so great in your town, but it doesn't matter because we're all people. We all have the innate same needs. We want to be loved. We want to be accepted. We want to be validated. And we want to have served purpose. You can't buy any of those things. And that is what we all want so much. So we make the facade, we pretend that if I drive this car, then people are going to think I'm successful. If I live here, then people are going to think I'm successful. And then there's the other side of that coin. Well, if I'm driving this car, people are going to think I'm a loser. If I live in this zip code, think I'm a loser. You could be the most fantastic human being in the entire world, that God has something great for you to do that supersedes anybody that's living up here. But you have to believe that you can do that. Not be arrogant about it, but just have faith and trust in God that He has the ability to change you. He made you in your mother's womb. He definitely can change and bring you to the point in life where He wants you to be. And He wants all of us to live the abundant life and to serve the purposes that He put on us when we were born. We all are born with a purpose. Some of us are teachers. Some of us will be doctors. Some of us will be a police officer. Some of us will just be a housewife. And I say just a housewife. That's the biggest job in the world. Being a mother and taking care of your children day in and day out. You thinking, oh, this is boring. You are raising the next generation. You're the one that's instilling their values, their work ethic. You are so important. A mom is so important. A dad is important. If that's all you ever do is raise your family, and you do good at that, and you teach them about the Lord, and you teach them responsibility, and not to be mean to people, and to be kind, and to work, and not take things from people, and don't use people. Oh my, can you imagine one generation of every parent doing that, where our world would be today? So you can't dismiss anything you do, because we have to have doctors, we have to have lawyers, we have to have police, we have to have mothers, we have to have babies, we have to have adults, we have teachers at school teaching us. All of us play a part. And I'm hoping that in this little thing, this little lesson here that we're talking about, that you see how important it is to have God come in your life, and for you to really sit down and evaluate where you are and what masks you are wearing, and what do you really want in life. What is it that you're seeking? And write it down and start figuring out, how am I going to get there? And the best way to do that is to read the Bible and read the stories of the other people, and how did they overcome. David, we'll go on to him next week. We'll talk about King David, because he has a story of stories. So right now on this story, I'm going to let it go. And I hope that this has brought some encouragement to you, and that you have a little bit more hope of where you are and what you can accomplish in life. And until we meet again, God bless.